So we'll go ahead and get started. We've got about 45 minutes scheduled for this, and I plan on reserving the last bit for questions. And if we don't have enough time for me to answer all of your questions, we'll be available outside here during the break after the session. I would love to answer any questions that anyone has. So I'd like to start out by saying that desktop engineering has finally got done, and we have a Windows 7 build now. This is exactly what the beta testers are going to get. If you sign up for the beta, you're getting Windows 7, which is on your right. This is what will be installed on your system. So everything that I'm going to be going through today, you will have the ability to do the exact same thing on your system. So this is what the official build will look like as of 3/15, whenever we release it to campus. Okay, so a few things that you're going to notice right off looking at Vista 7 is the taskbar is different. Windows 7 has had a pretty extensive overhaul to its taskbar. In my opinion, they've made it a whole lot more usable. We're going to go through a few of the changes Microsoft has made there. So one thing you can notice right away is the way that the taskbar shows up, it shows open programs, and it shows them basically as a little square instead of as a long rectangle as it does with Vista. The reason behind that is Microsoft wanted to make it a lot easier for users to be able to find what they were looking for and to launch programs. The Vista taskbar, think of it a lot more like, the 7 taskbar, think about it a lot more like Vista's quick launch, this right here. Microsoft has basically expanded it and made it a lot more useful. So to kind of give you an example of how the quick launch works, you click on a program and it opens down here in the corner. That's pretty much all you get with that. With 7, if you were to click on it, you can open a new instance of that program, but you can also have unopened programs down here as well, which we'll talk about in a second. One thing that we can definitely tell right away, it's a little bit more difficult to tell on 7 than it is on Vista, but we see that we have a number here indicating how many of these particular windows we have open. Otherwise, it operates just like XP. This is the grouping feature that exists in Windows XP as well. This has been carried forward into Vista. On 7, it's a little bit less obvious just by glancing. As we can see over here, you'll be able to see that there are 2 very small outlines around IE. It may be kind of hard to see on the monitor. It shows up a whole lot better whenever you're looking at it directly on your system. This indicates there are 2 programs running, which is going to lead into the next point, is the preview. As we can see on Vista, it says we have 3 programs running, but we only see the last one that was open whenever we hover over it. On 7, it's going to show us every single one that we have open. So if we were to open several more of these, we still get previews of every single individual window. Whereas with Vista, all we've got is the last one that was open. Another really neat feature of this is you can click the scroll wheel in order to close or to open new windows. So this makes navigating Windows 7 a whole lot quicker. All right, so we can see here that I had two instances open. We can see Firefox and Outlook and Windows 7 open all at the same time. And we can simply just click to open a new one, or we can hover where the preview shows up, click to close. Another really neat feature with the interface in Windows 7 is we now have what's been dubbed as jump list. If you were to right click on here, you get frequently open programs, so you get to see where your last open program was on here, or you're going to get new task. So we can start in private browsing, open a new tab in this particular window. So whenever you right click, the jump list is either going to contain recently opened documents or commonly used tasks associated with that particular program. Another thing is pinning. We can see that Media Player and Windows Explorer sit down here at the bottom. We can see that they're not open. They don't have the outline around them indicating that they're running. If we were to add something else, let's say Paint, there are several different ways to do it. We could right click and say Pin to Taskbar, and that'll put it down here. It's not going to start it, it's just going to put it down there. And then we can unpin, or we can just drag. Reordering, this is the first time that Microsoft has updated Windows to allow you to move what order your programs are in. So if I were to click and drag on Outlook, I can't put it where I want. On 7, no problem. So again, it operates a whole lot more like Vista's Quick Launch. So we see that we have no problem reordering those over here. There's one other thing to touch on, one other major update is the Action Center in Windows 7. This is more of a feature in and of itself, but it is part of the new taskbar, so I want to touch on it. The Action Center is going to sit out there and monitor every single maintenance and security task, basically just to monitor your system, and it's going to alert you if there are any problems. So we can see here it's looking for at the Windows firewall, Windows update, virus and spyware protection, all of this stuff. It's telling us that we have all of these safety features turned on and that they're all active, or that they're turned off, like UAC. We are turning that off on our campus builds. So if you're ever curious about what's going on with your system, the Action Center is a good place to get a lot of information really quickly. The last new feature with the taskbar that I want to talk about is also a feature with Arrow. So Arrow is what Microsoft has named the user interface in Vista. We can see that a few of the features are transparency. We can see that we can plainly see the background in Vista through here. Maybe it's not showing up as well in the black and white photograph, but anyhow, you guys can see what I'm talking about, right? So we also get a lot of transparency through open windows. So if I were to drag this by the clock, we can clearly see the clock through the. So this is Arrow. Microsoft has made a lot of improvements to Arrow between Vista and 7. One that's more or less tied into the taskbar, or that's initiated through taskbar, is called Arrow Peak. If you hover over the area directly to the right of the clock, what it's going to do is it's going to make all of your windows transparent, so you can see what windows you have open, and it's also going to allow you to see gadgets in the background. We'll get to gadgets in a minute, and I'll show you how this can be pretty beneficial. So we can hover over it, or we can click to minimize everything. And if you click again, it puts everything back exactly where it was. So that's one way to say, okay, I see something on my desktop, I want to be able to run that, so we can just click, open Firefox again, and just be on our way. Another update is Arrow Shake. This is something I'm not very good at, but I know a lot of people that use this particular feature. If you grab a window and shake it, it's going to minimize everything else. If you shake it again, it's going to put everything back exactly where it was. I know it doesn't seem too terribly useful on the surface, I'll grant you that, but it is pretty nifty whenever you're wanting to get to something on your desktop and you can't be bothered to click down here or hit Start D. Start D will also show your desktop. So that's something else Microsoft's thrown into Arrow. One of my favorite features of Arrow is definitely Snap. I'm going to go ahead and just have one window open so you guys can see this all plain as day. Snap is really cool. You've probably seen it on the Windows 7 commercials. There are several different features of it. If you click and drag to the bottom and resize to the bottom, it's gonna keep it the same width, but it's gonna maximize it vertically. So whenever you click it to the taskbar, you can see right above the paint icon, it throws out like a little ripple. That indicates that it's touched the taskbar. And then whenever you pull it away, it's going to resize it exactly to what it was. Drag it to the top to maximize, drag it away to restore, and you can see the little ripple effect that it does to let you know that, hey, you've touched the side. You can drag it over to the side, and it will resize it to exactly half the screen. So this is really neat if you want to compare two documents. Here we have Firefox and IE, so we can, say we wanted to see the difference in how these two browsers rendered a web page. It's really easy to do that on here. And again, just drag it away to restore the size. There are some keyboard shortcuts for this. If you hold in the Start button, the Windows logo, you can hit, I'm hitting left at this point. It's going to move it across the screen. Right's going to do the opposite. Up will maximize it. Down will, if it's maximized, restore to there. Or if you hold in Windows key and hit down, it's going to minimize it completely. So if you're a keyboard person, there's some really neat shortcuts there to allow you to do these sort of things. One feature that Microsoft introduced with Vista and with Aero, whenever Aero first came out, is Flip. Well, Flip is, Microsoft has renamed it. It used to be called Alt-Tab. If you hold in Alt and hit Tab, you can cycle through your running programs. It's been updated so you actually get a preview. It shows you what program it's running with the program's icon in the lower right corner. So simply Alt-Tab through programs. It's a little bit more, I guess it gives you a better visual cue as to what you're doing. Now, if you were to press Windows Tab, this is called Flip 3D. So it gives you a very good indication of exactly what program you're doing. One thing that's kind of neat with that is we're going to use our jump list here. And we're going to open some live video. And we can, on keyboard, we can actually tab through, or we can actually flip 3D through this, and it's still going to render the live video through here. So that's one feature that's kind of neat. It does require a fairly decent video card, but most systems have those nowadays. And again, you just get your visual cues of what's going on. Vista will do the same thing, but this is most certainly different than XP. Okay, so on to some improvements directly over Vista. To give you guys a little bit of background, Windows 2000 came out in late 99. It started widely being used in the year 2000. And then Windows XP came out in 2001. XP was based almost entirely on Windows 2000. It worked, acted, and behaved on the back end exactly the same way. There were a few GUI improvements, that is graphical user interface improvements, here and there. So some things behaved a little bit differently, but by and large it was the same operating system. The same applies here to Vista and Windows 7. Vista, as you guys know, it took a long time for Microsoft to come out with it. They completely rewrote this new operating system more or less from the ground up. So it's not based on Windows XP or any predecessor at all. It's its own beast, I guess you'd say. And 7 is based largely on Windows Vista. So these two operating systems are going to behave very similarly on the back end of things, where people like me would get in and tinker around. But the regular user, the average user, they're going to see that that there are a lot of similarities, but there are definitely some differences, mainly in the user interface. Microsoft's just made a ton of improvements. So some of those improvements, we'll start with a quick one. So we can look here and we can see on Windows Vista, these are called gadgets. I'm sure a lot of you, if you have Vista at home, use some sort of gadget to for any number of things. There are thousands of them out there. You can close them. You can drag them off of the sidebar, put them wherever. But the one downside to that is the sidebar always has to be open. If we were to come down here and we were to close the sidebar, all of our gadgets are going to close. So I'm going to go ahead and install a couple of my favorite gadgets on Windows 7. And they're loading up. So one thing that you'll notice right away is it puts the gadgets in the same place that it did on Vista. One big difference that you'll notice, we can put them anywhere we want, just like Vista, but the sidebar is completely gone. So our gadgets are no longer confined to the sidebar or dependent on the sidebar running, just to use your gadgets. We can open the sidebar back up over here on Vista and look at them side by side. So a few similarities there, one major difference. Nothing's dependent on sidebar. So another neat feature, like I was saying, if you use Arrow Peek, you can very quickly see all of your running gadgets. I'm looking at my CPU usage in the top right gadget, top left, and if I were to quickly see what my computer was doing, just hover over this little button down here, and everything shows up. For keyboard people, Windows key G will pull all of your gadgets to the front, so you can see those really quickly. Excuse me. One thing that Microsoft has carried over from Vista is presentation settings. So this is very this is definitely different than anything that XP had. Some of you may not be familiar with them or may not even seen it at all. For keyboard people, Windows key X will open the Mobility Center. Same on Vista. If you want to get to it through the Start menu, it's the same on both. We go to Start, Accessories, and Windows Mobility Center. So this is really neat. We can see. Go ahead and close our gadgets here, so we're not too cluttered. Okay, so we can quickly see everything at a glance. We can see our volume's all the way down but not muted. We can see our power's full. We can change our power plan if we were to. If we were to need that for whatever reason, disable wireless, all kinds of stuff. We can see here on both, there's a presentation mode. One thing that's really neat about that, this is the same on Vista and XP. We can say I'm currently giving a presentation. I'm going to turn that off. So say I wanted to change the background when I was presenting. So we can say, show this background, set the volume to high whenever I'm giving a presentation. And we can hit OK. So whenever we click turn on, we get to see my background with the creepy little dudes on here. And it's going to change our background to our presentation background and then change it back whenever we turn it off. So you just click on the little projector and we're good to go. So that's one thing that's most certainly different between XP and Vista and 7. Very useful, especially for those that give presentations a lot. One huge improvement that Microsoft has made in 7 over Vista is in Vista, if I wanted to set up the projector on here, I'd have to go to Personalize, Display Settings, and then tell it I have a second monitor that's hooked up. Typically, if you plug in a second monitor, Vista will recognize that and say, hey, what do you want to do with this? Unfortunately, I can't show that because it won't show up on the screen. One awesome thing with 7 is if you hold in Start and hit P, it's going to pull up this menu right here. It's going to give us the option to duplicate, which is what we're doing now. So what you guys see on the screen is exactly what I see. We can extend, so it uses this as a second monitor as opposed to mirroring the displays. We can put projector only, so right now I'm blind up here. Or we can turn it to computer only, which will turn off the projector. So some really neat shortcuts on that. It's going to make things a whole lot quicker if you switch between external monitors a lot. So Microsoft has also touted that they've made some big improvements with the way Windows 7 handles USB devices. I can say that this is one of my favorite things, one of my favorite speed performance increases in the new operating system. I'm going to plug a USB device into Vista. All right, it's plugged in right now. We can see down in the taskbar, it's looking for device drivers. So that little icon it's now stopped. Then it's going to pop open, asking me what I want to do with this device. Okay, now the second time we plug it in, it should be a little bit quicker. But you see, you get a feel for about how long it takes. Okay? With Windows 7, I'm going to plug this in. Now, okay, so it's going to pop up right away. Windows Media Player is running, so it's saying, hey, I want to use this drive to store music and videos. So I'm just going to close that out of the way. One thing that we see right away is that this has a new feature. It's going to let us back up our files to this external drive if we choose to. That's something we won't cover today, but that is also a new feature in 7. We still have Ready Boost, everything else. But the speed difference in plugging in for the first time in Windows 7 versus plugging in for the first time in Vista, big difference. Then, just like Vista, we can use Ready Boost. This is going to use my USB drive as a temporary cache, basically, to allow my system to run a little bit more quickly. So it's writing to that instead of to my hard drive. It's a lot of technical background there, but we'll just say if you have a fast USB drive, Ready Boost helps at least a little bit. In some cases, it helps a lot. Microsoft has said that one big difference between Vista and 7, even though, like I said, they're in the back end, they're more or less the same operating system. Windows 7 has a much lower memory footprint. Microsoft says on their site, and I've challenged this. I've tried to find it. I've seen it, so I know this to be true. But I've tried to figure out exactly what some of the differences are between Vista and 7. Microsoft said that one major improvement they've made is turning off services that aren't being used. An example that they gave is that whenever you're not using Bluetooth, it actually disables the back-end service or shuts it down. So it's not running, it's not consuming memory whenever it's not being used. This seems to hold true to most Windows services or background tasks. It just shuts them down completely whenever nothing's going on. I can attest that Windows 7 runs significantly better on every single system that I've tried to run it on compared to Vista. It's definitely been slimmed down and made a lot leaner. So, another awesome feature is Windows 7's power management. It's going to be kind of hard to show on the screen, so I'm just going to have to hold the system up. One huge improvement that has been made to 7 is sleep mode. So I'm going to put this computer to sleep, just tapping the power button. It's going to take it a second to go to sleep because it has to get all the stuff out of the hard drive that it's using, and it saves it all in memory, and it puts it into an ultra-low power state. Hibernation still exists in Windows 7, for those of you who are curious. You can still suspend a disk just like you did with Vista, and that feature was introduced in Windows XP. So that still exists, and it's still pretty usable. I don't use it just because sleep is so much faster. All right, I think that's pretty much it on the direct improvements. I want to talk about some of the tools that exist in Vista and 7 that we didn't really have in XP, or that have been changed quite a bit since XP. One of the first things we'll look at is sticky notes. This is sticky notes in Windows 7. It's just real simple you can right click and you can change all the colors, and you can put all of your sticky notes basically wherever you want them, and you can type it in. With Windows Vista, this we can see here that it's in the tablet PC option in accessories, and we can see that there's a pretty big difference in how these work. The default input mechanism is the mouse or the stylus, seeing as how this was designed to be used on tablet systems. And we can delete. It's a lot more clunky to use. We can't just put them everywhere that we want. We have to cycle through all these in order to get to all of our notes and everything. It's a lot more cleaner in 7. So that's one thing that, if you like using sticky notes, that's one thing that you'll definitely appreciate with 7. Snipping tool exists in Windows XP and in Windows Vista and in 7. Open the snipping tool, grab an outline. This puts it on the clipboard and in here. You can save this as any document you want, JPEG, GIF, even HTML file. So that's a pretty nifty tool if you're doing PowerPoints or you want to quickly select something instead of having to do Alt Print Screen, paste it into Paint, and having to do all that. Notepad still exists. It's the same thing. Sound recorder, calculator. There have been a few improvements in a couple of these tools. For example, we'll go ahead and look at calculator in Windows 7. There's been some improvements in Windows Calculator in that we can do unit conversions now, which is something that didn't exist in Vista. We can also calculate the difference between two different dates. So that's one thing that's pretty neat. Little bits here and there that are definitely different than Vista. Search is something that is more or less the same. So one difference here is Vista is searching all of my mail as well. I don't have that particular thing enabled in Windows 7 right now. Sorry, one sec. We can look at some of the grouping differences in here. So we can see Windows Vista will tell us we have programs, favorites, files, communications, which is my particular email. Then we can see on 7, it groups it and tells us how many options there are. I search for Win, so it's going to find anything to do with Windows. We can look at files. It's going to group things together. It's going to be a whole lot easier to find exactly what I'm looking for. We can see that the search results are a little bit different in Windows 7 than they are in XP. Than they are in Vista as well. One thing that, for those of you who have used Windows 2000 or remember anything about it, one thing that Microsoft has brought back is the preview pane. I'm not sure I've got any documents on here. I think I can give you an example in sample pictures. Okay, so the preview pane, if we were to click on it, it's going to show us a preview next to it. I know that right now Windows Explorer is doing that before we go to details, this would be a lot more helpful. So one other thing that this is really helpful with is it does it with text documents, Office documents, assuming you have Microsoft Office installed. You can preview pretty much anything. If we were to go to videos and turn on the preview pane, we can actually preview it in the Windows Explorer without opening the file directly. So this is something that Microsoft kind of played with in Windows 2000. They've more or less perfected it in 7. Again, that's not something that Vista has as a feature. Click the thing and open it up in full screen, and it's going to open it up where it was previewing. So that's really helpful if you're, for me anyhow, whenever I'm searching through a lot of documents, a lot of Office documents, I can just turn on the preview pane and make sure that it's the document I want before I go through all the hassle of opening it and scrolling down, find what I'm looking for. And one other tool that exists in 7 and Vista that doesn't exist in Windows XP is location-aware printing. For those of you who haven't used it, this is a really neat feature. Devices and printers. So if we were to click on a document and say manage default printers. Now this option is only enabled on mobile systems. This does not work on your tower desktop system sitting in your office or at your house. One thing that we can definitely do is change what our default printer is. So I have our our campus network selected here out of the available networks, and I've set my work printer as default. One other thing that we can do, so my work printer is right here. I've got it labeled as that. For those of you who've ever used XPS Document Writer, what this will do is it will print a file to an XPS document, and you don't have to be connected to any printer. It prints it as a document and saves an XPS file. XPS is a lot like PDF if you're familiar with that. So if I have no network, I want to set my default printer to the to the XPS document writer, and that way if I don't have access to a printer, I can always print to that and then save it as a document and open that whenever I do have a printer available. So that's one other really neat feature. It's going to detect what wireless network you're on and change your printer based on that. Okay, and the last major difference between the way XP, Vista, and 7 operates is data organization. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of, besides the taskbar and the user interface, this is the single biggest change Microsoft has made between these 3 operating systems. As you guys may or may not know, there are a few differences in the way your data is stored between Windows Vista and Windows XP. It's hidden by default right now. In Windows XP, everything is saved under C, Documents and Settings, your user ID, and then you have your desktop folder, your downloads folder, your My Documents folder. Everything is stored in Documents and Settings, user ID. That's been updated in Windows Vista, so everything is saved in Users user ID. So we can see that my desktop folder is here, my downloads, and then all that stuff. We can see the data layout. We can see what the folder names are in here. We'll go ahead and open a comparable folder in Windows 7 and look at them side by side. We can see that the folder names are different. In Vista, so in Windows XP it was named My Documents. In Vista they changed it to Documents. In Windows 7 they changed it back to My Documents. So yeah, so you always have to stay on your toes whenever it's a data organization. But one thing Microsoft did that's really, really slick in 7 is they've introduced the idea of libraries. So you don't have to worry about what these folders' names are. You can go to Libraries and Documents. And this is going to show all of the documents. Now, libraries it's the best way to think of it is a collection of folders. So whenever you open a library, it's going to open the contents, the combined contents of several different folders. You're not going to see what folder it's in. You're just going to see the contents of all those folders, basically. So we can see that the documents library includes my documents, as in my user's documents, and public documents. If I were to include a folder, we'll go ahead and create a new folder here on the desktop. Name it Desktop Documents. All we have to do is browse to that folder, and we can include it. So inside of this folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a new text file. And if I go through and, sorry, I have to actually hit OK on this before the next changes. So if I go to Documents, it's going to show me what folder it's in, but I'm going to be able to access everything that's in this particular library very quickly. Everything's going to be all in one place, even though it's spread across the entire system. I can even create, I can even add things to this library that's on our network. So, okay, it has to be indexed. I guess that's the caveat here. But libraries can include different folders across the entire system, across external drives like USB drives. As long as Windows can index it, it can show up in here as a folder inside of your library. It's pretty easy to collapse. And if you're ever curious, you can always just go to Properties, and it's going to tell you what folders are included in that particular library. By default, Windows includes documents, music, pictures, and videos. If I were to add a new library, I can name it whatever I want. We'll say files. And all we have to do is include a folder. We'll go ahead and include wrong folder. Go ahead and include the one that was on this desktop. So we can see that a folder can be part of multiple different libraries without any problems there. That's probably the biggest change in data organization since Windows XP came out. Your stuff lives in a different place, but it's easily accessible. And the last thing I want to talk about today is one feature that I can't demonstrate because of the limits, because it only works in a home setting. Whenever you connect to a network, it's going to say, "Hey, what do you want to label this network as? Do you want to label it as a home network, work network, or public network?" We've set up our build so it identifies as work network, because that's going to be what it is for everyone who's using our build. But if you were to take a university system home, hook it up to your own wireless, you're going to have the option to choose the wireless network and associate it with your home network. One feature that's been added that is pretty nifty, that's going to make it a lot easier to share documents across your home network, is called Home Group. And it's going to tell me I can't join because location has to be set to home. But basically, what this is going to give you the ability to do is to share libraries across your home network. So whenever you take the system home, you can set up it's going to prompt you to set up a home group the first time you connect to a network and label it as home. And you set up a password. And so all of your other Windows 7 systems can join that home group, and you can share libraries back and forth without any problem. It's basically like file sharing. It's just a whole lot easier for users who have never actually used file sharing, don't really understand how it works. All you have to do is set up your home group, and you can see all of your documents spread across your home system, your home desktop, another laptop you might have at home, and your work computer. So that's one thing I say. Unfortunately, I can't demonstrate it, but it is definitely a feature that I would highly recommend you check out if you if and when you get Windows 7 put on one of your systems. So I think I've covered pretty much everything I intended to. Any questions? Yeah.
That preview pane you were talking about?
Yes.
If I was, say, in a program, say Internet Explorer or whatnot, and I was uploading a file, and I was going through the open dialog box.
Right.
And I'm searching through my hard drive to find that file that I want to open and upload. Would I get a preview in that?
That's a good question. Without signing into Blackboard, which is probably the easiest way I know of to look at that, I think that the preview pane only works whenever you're in real Windows Explorer mode, as opposed to find a document and upload it. I don't really know, but that's an interesting question. If it is, then that would be extremely useful. Unfortunately, haven't tested that. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, Roy?
Is this system going to be available in both platforms, 32 and 64?
No, on our campus, we've gone strictly to 64-bit. We're not going to be offering Windows 7 or Vista, for that matter, anymore for 32-bit systems. Too many people wanting 64-bit, and we can't really support both. We just don't have the manpower. Every system's come out in the last 4 or 5 years is going to be 64-bit capable. So we decided to go ahead and make that switch. All of your 32-bit, let me rephrase that, almost all of your 32-bit apps should work just fine on the 64-bit operating system. So, yeah.
I'm all about free. Can you show the themes on like desktop?
Yes. That is something I kind of glazed over for the sake of time. So we can see that this is the default theme. I like to personalize my stuff. You know, if I were to come in here, you can go through and you can set this thing to be exactly what color you want. And you can also set the intensity, so how transparent it is. So if I've got something open in the background, well, we can just use the Windows logo in the back here as an example. We can set the color intensity, basically how transparent it is. So you can do all that. There are dozens of different. I accidentally scrolled down. There are dozens of different backgrounds that Microsoft has provided in Windows 7, including some not so conventional backgrounds, a little bit more abstract stuff, some nature stuff. You can do all kinds of customizations in 7. It's pretty nifty. One other thing that I've seen is one other thing I've seen is you can set it up to change the picture every 30 minutes. I know a few people around the office using that. By default, it's 30 minutes. You can set it down to, I think, 5 or up to like 4 hours or something like that. So all you have to do is select multiple. Okay, so 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, it's going to change my background between the ones that I've selected. So all kinds of customizations with that. Does that answer your question? Cool. Anyone else? Okay. If you guys think of anything else, or if you want to talk about anything else, we've got another 10 or 12 minutes. So thank you guys for coming, and I hope this at least gave you an idea of what's different in the user interface at the very least.